Hello, BookTube. It's that melancholy time of the week again, the last mail haul. I waited all day. I had so much writing to do. I worked all day and I played with my puppy as the mail accumulated, and I thought we'd go through it. There's not much. Saturdays tend to be light anyway, and this was no exception. I thought we'd go through the mail and also rifle through my non-bookish mail. Because I got a bunch of periodicals. So I thought, as long as I've got a captive audience, I might as well. Like, for instance, the new Entertainment Weekly, which the last time we went through Entertainment Weekly, we realized that there's quite a lot of book stuff in every issue. I think that's wonderful that they don't neglect the books. Like, for instance, this has Tomi Ademi's Children of Blood and Bone, a feature on her book Children of Blood and Bone, with that incredibly striking cover. And typically, although a lot of TV series and movies and on whatnot are based on books, typically you have to go all the way to the back of the magazine to get the actual book coverage. And I was wondering what that would be this time around. I never can tell. I never know what they're going to do, which is, in my opinion, a weakness. I wish that Entertainment Weekly had one solid, steady books section editor. And I wish that in a different world, in a different reality, I wish that book section editor not only never changed, didn't rotate, was never anonymous, but also that occasionally they were given the front of the magazine. I firmly believe that most of Entertainment Weekly's readers are also book readers. I think there are a lot more of us than we sometimes think there are. But let's see what they do here. So, so the marquee review goes to Luis Alberto Urrea's The House of Broken Angels, which I thought was only so-so. And this here, it's reviewed by Leah Greenblatt, who gives it a B+. So she must have liked it more than I did. It's a big, messy, warm-hearted epic, so overflowing with color and characters, its strands are sometimes hard to follow without keeping a homemade flowchart in the margins. Okay, well, I felt exactly the same way, but I didn't think that was a strength of the book. I grew irritated by the fact that the author wasn't controlling his material. I guess she didn't. That's interesting. Boy, that's great for him. The marquee read, the full-page review here always gets notice for a book. That's very good. And then on the next page here, we've got Amy Kaufman's book, Bachelor Nation, which I ignored. But also a feature here by Christian Holub and David Canfield on 5 books to read if you loved Black Panther. And there is the scene that everyone loves from the movie where T'Challa fights with Eric Killmonger for everything. And if I had to guess, I mean, I'm not particularly good at prognosticating for Hollywood, but if I had to guess, this single scene catapulted Michael B. Johnson from C-list to A-list. That single scene, I would be willing to bet, did that, and that he will never have to scrounge for marquee parts again, which is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I'm sure I'm not the only person. In fact, I bet I'm in the majority to think that he absolutely stole the movie. He was a bolt of lightning throughout the whole thing. And as is my way, when I was watching him as the villain in Black Panther, I was immediately dreamcasting him in other roles. But what have we got here? What do they say you should read if you liked Black Panther? Well, okay. Christopher Priest, the comic book writer Christopher Priest, he did a run on Black Panther for years that was really, really good, and they strongly advise that. Sean Howe's book, Marvel Comics, The Untold Story, for some reason they put it here. I thought it was facile. Roxane Gay and Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a comic book called The World of Wakanda. They list it here as a book you should read if you liked Black Panther, but it was terrible. So I don't know what they're thinking there. I guess it must have fans. Then The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. How isn't that fascinating? Well, I'll certainly agree with the reading of M.K. Jemisin, but I don't see... and then Yatasha Womack's book, Afrofuturism, which I've heard a lot of people talking about, including a lot of bookish people that I love talking books with or emailing books with, but I haven't actually read the book. I don't even have a copy. what does it say about Afrofuturism? Womack's definitive, authoritative treatment of Afrofuturism, a cultural aesthetic that combines fantasy and sci-fi elements with Afrocentrism, is easily read as a primer for the genre that Black Panther has helped bring into the mainstream. But Womack infuses the book with elements of memoir and cultural criticism too, making a personal and emotional argument for Afrofuturism's vitality. Okay. All right. And then, because Entertainment Weekly is awesome, the book coverage continues. So what do we have here next? Oh, wow. Okay, look at this. A whole sidebar on the numbers breakdown for Lars Kepler's The Sandman. The Sandman by the numbers. 4 Kepler books are being released in the U.S. this year alone. The number of copies of The Sandman sold internationally is 2 million. The 9 is the number of countries in which Sandman has topped the bestseller list, and 30 is the number of languages in which it's been published. Wow. I heard something of its acclaim. I didn't know the acclaim was that large, and I actually read the book just recently, and oh my god, it's tremendously good. Even in an English language translation, it's tremendously good in a purely visceral thriller type way. I mean, if you take that crucial step back, which you shouldn't do when you're reading a book like this, then you see that it's almost entirely absurd. It's just, if you take that, like Plots and Points was saying in a great video of his today, he was talking about the suspension of disbelief. And if you do that, if you make the mistake of doing that with this book, in his video, he was talking about things authors will do to accidentally cause you to come crashing back down and start noticing the words on the page instead of suspending your disbelief. And the author of The Sandman, Lars Kepler, doesn't do anything to cause you to come crashing back down. But if you make the decision to do it anyway, then you see immediately the emperor has no clothes. But you shouldn't do that. I'll say you shouldn't do that, because boy, what a book if you don't do that. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, David Canfield, the aforementioned David Canfield, gives a B+ grade to Census by the loathsome Jesse Ball, the loathsome and surgically untalented Jesse Ball. How can he possibly have thought this was worth a B+? That just isn't possible. The Road Trip, overrepresented as it may be in fiction, provides an ideal structure for the acclaimed novelist Jesse Ball, a writer of an elegantly poetic bent. That is not true. Census is the author's tribute to his late brother, who lived with Down syndrome. It's fashioned as a journey of indefinite length by a dying widower and his disabled son, a caretaker dynamic that reflects the role Ball assumed at a young age. The father is a census taker for a mysterious entity. He goes from town to town, home to home, chatting up and then tattooing each person of interest for unnervingly vague reasons, before moving on with his son by his side. Well, okay. But what you've just listed is a string of negatives, only you're casting them as positives. You're right. We never learn anything about the entity. We never learn anything about the reason for the road trip. We never learn how long it takes, how long a distance is between one place and another, how long these people have been on the road. And it's maddening. It's just that Jesse Ball considers himself above the task of providing you with specifics. It is not an artistic decision on a creative level. It's rather, don't bother me. I'm going to show up to my editorial meeting with the editors and with the publisher who gives me my money, who pays me my wage. I'm going to take my loafers off and start clipping my toenails at the board table because I'm an unwashed genius. Well, screw that. The census taker enters into homes. People seem to recognize him. He tattoos people and then leaves. None of it is ever explained. It's ridiculous. That is not worth a B+. Those are negatives. Okay. And then, let's see, in the new and notable column, we have Sunburn by Laura Lippman, which I didn't like. The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, which I'm in the very small minority of people who just didn't like it. It's deadly dull. But also, in nonfiction, Boys Keep Swinging by Jake Shears oh my God, I've gone completely blank on Scissor Sisters. He wrote a memoir called Boys Keep Swinging that the personal stuff, the adolescent stuff gets a little bit drippy. But when he starts writing about the gay scene that he first entered, when he was, a gorgeous boy from the provinces, it's just, it's beautiful. That part of the book is just, you can't put it down. All right, so that is the book section of Entertainment Weekly. But we also got the New York Review of Books, which I still subscribe to, even though it has political coverage. And look at this. This is part of the New York Review of Books' charm is that some of its content is aimed squarely at dyed-in-the-wool readers of book criticism. You might even go so far as to say dyed-in-the-wool readers of the New York Review of Books. And look what they put at the very top to advertise that. Janet Malcolm on Norman Potteritz. Which, 9/10 of book readers are going to look at that and think, I don't know who either of those people are, and why should I care? And or not 9/10, 9.9/10, but the tiny fraction of people who are going to see Janet Malcolm on Norman Potteritz are going to go, oh, I've been waiting for this without even knowing that I was. That is awesome news. But what have we got here? I won't drag you through the whole thing. Let's just see. When I look at the New York Review of Books, I automatically want to see first. I won't do it, but I will. I automatically flip through to see if in the paid publisher ads I am blurbed. Because that's always fun when you're in a magazine or newspaper that you really love. But I also look in the table of contents to see if they're reviewing anything that I've reviewed. Because that adds an extra frisson. So what have we got here? Okay, Janet Malcolm does review. There's a new New York Review of Books did a reprint of Making It by Norman Potteritz that had the whole literary world on fire with rage and fury when it first came out a long time ago, and now has been reprinted, and it's been generating some wonderful critical responses the second time around. I can't wait to read hers. Josephine Quinn reviews the Landmark Julius Caesar. I reviewed the Landmark Julius Caesar, and Josephine Quinn is the author of that book on the Phoenicians that we saw on this channel, where she posits that there aren't any. And then you can look all you like. You won't find them for that reason. Oh my. Okay, the incomprehensible pop philosopher John Gray reviews The Square and the Tower by Neil Ferguson, which I reviewed. And I had problems with The Square and the Tower, and I have problems with John Gray. That's probably going to be a very annoying piece to read. Oh, and Mark Mazur, who's really good, reviews The Story of the Jews, 1492 to 1900. By Simon Schama, which it's the second part in a three-book series on the history of the Jewish people by Simon Schama, and it's huge. It's like 800 pages long, and for those reasons, it isn't getting any, the kind of critical attention that a standalone book by one of our greatest living historians would get otherwise. I'm very happy to see it get a review here, but I wish that I'd reviewed it, because I read it in advanced form, and then I read it in finished copy, and the more I think about it, the more blown away I am by it. It's such a wise and also unexpectedly funny book, considering what those centuries meant to the Jews. It's unexpectedly funny. It's a masterpiece of historical synthesis. I wish that I'd reviewed it. I wish I still had a copy. I'll grab it when it comes out in paperback. That's great to see somebody doing it. That's wonderful. And Michael Gora does a review of the big new 2-volume Library of America works of Pete Taylor. That's very good. He's a great choice to do that. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's going to be a lot of interesting reading here. And then, before we get to the packages, this is going to be another huge mail. It's the Christian Science Monitor. So, what have we got? The Christian Science Monitor. Typically, if I get a copy, it's because I'm in the copy. There is the Christian Science Monitor with a sticky note on it that says superb, and another sticky note leading me to the promised land. So what is it that... this is... Whoa, doesn't that look nice? This is a 3-book roundup I did of modern science fiction. I did Sue Burke's Semiosis, which you may have seen on Open Letters Review. Britta Bowler also reviewed for us. All the Names They Use for God by Anjali Sakdeva. and A Black Fox Running, which was reprinted, and much to my delight. Wow. Oh, that looks lovely. Wonderful. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So we've got the Christian Science model. That's very good. And then we'll get to the mail. You almost forgot, didn't you? So what is this first one? Okay. Didn't request this. This comes out in July. This is Donald Hall, A Carnival of Losses. Notes nearing 90. Wow. Okay. At 89 years old, with over 50 published books to his name, former Poet Laureate of the United States, Donald Hall tells all in his latest collection of essays chronicling his lifetime in literature, love, and loss. No longer writing poetry, Hall turns to prose as he continues to write from his ancestral home of Eagle Pond Farm. Okay. All right. Okay, so a prose memoir from Donald Hall. I'm all for it. Let's see. Let's see what this next one is. This mail haul also ends in a box, and it's an enormous box, a heavy box. I can't imagine what's in it. Let's see what first here. Oh my. Oh, okay. Okay, great. This comes out in August. Too late for March Mystery Madness. This is Prisoners in the Castle by Susan Elia McNeill. Maggie Hope book. This is the new Maggie Hope book. Wow. Fantastic. Okay, what have we got for what is Maggie Hope up to now? She's being held prisoner in a remote Scottish island with her colleagues, her fellow agents, who know too much about for the enemy's comfort. All the spies on the island are trained to kill, and when they start dropping off one by one, Maggie needs to find the murderer before she becomes the next victim. Oh boy. Oh boy. Fantastic. Okay, so this is the follow-up, the direct follow-up to The Paris Spy, which I reviewed and very much liked. Wow, great. Okay, the Paris Spy ended almost on a cliffhanger, so I've been eagerly waiting for this. So that's wonderful. All right, then this thing here. What is this? Oh, okay. Didn't think I was going to get this. Wonderful. This comes out now. This is out now already. Yeah, this is out already. This is Picasso and the Painting That Shocked the World by Miles Unger. You're not supposed to be shocked by that enormous not-for-resale sticker garishly stuck right onto the cover of the finished copy. You're not supposed to be struck by that. You're supposed to just ignore that. But that is the young Picasso on the cover. When Picasso became Picasso. In 1900, 18-year-old Pablo Picasso journeyed from Barcelona to Paris, the glittering capital of the art world. For the next several years, he endured poverty and neglect before emerging as the leader of a bohemian band of painters, sculptors, and poets. Here he met his first true love and enjoyed his first taste of fame. Decades later, Picasso would look back on these years as the happiest of his long life. And I have not read this. I never got the advance copy. But word that I've heard from people, I know a couple of people who have read it, a couple of critics who've read it already, and they say that it's misserved by its title. The title draws your attention to one painting, and they say that what it really is a biography of young Picasso, and would have been much better served by a title along the lines of Young Picasso. And, I can't help but think that might be right, even without having read the book. Imagine how much more attractive, ignoring for the minute the garish sticker, imagine how much more attractive this would be just as a book package if you had that weird picture, not the Picasso you picture in your mind, with just the advertisement of a biography of him as a young man. I think, well, we'll see. We'll see. I highly suspect this is not going to be about the painting that shocked the world. Not really. But we shall see. I'm glad to have it. That's great. And then we have the box, which is very heavy, but is not rattling around. So I almost want to say that it's one book. But how could it be one book at this weight? We shall soon know. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. No, it's more than one book. Let's see. Let's see what this is. earth? Okay. Okay, we have Whistler's Mother, The Portrait of an Extraordinary Life, famous James McNeill Whistler painting. And then we have Whistler, A Life for Art's Sake, a paperback reprint from Yale University Press of the great big biography of him by Daniel Sutherland that I have heard all kinds of things about. Everybody says this is the biography of him to read, and yet I have not read it. But what is it doing here? Why am I seeing these at all? Let's see. Let's find out. Okay, so Whistler, Life for Art's Sake is now out in paperback. Comes out at the end of March in paperback, and was originally published in 2014. And then, all right. So Sutherland wrote Whistler's Mother with George Tutziara. And it comes out at the end of March. Okay, so Whistler's Mother is the new book. And somebody at Yale very thoughtfully decided to include the new paperback release of Sutherland's actual biography of Whistler. Okay. All right, so what is Whistler's Mother? Judged by the portrait arrangement in gray and black number 1, which is the actual name of the painting, Anna Whistler appears to have been a pious, unassuming domestic woman. This characterization, however, is far from the whole truth. You're not telling me this is actually a biography of Whistler's mother. Anna was born in the slaveholding South, raised principally in Brooklyn, New York, and resided for many years in both Russia and Great Britain, and her life was filled with adventure and excitement. The author's unprecedented use of her private diaries and correspondence results in a crisp biographical rendering that reveals a resilient, vibrant, bright, and deeply engaged woman. This is a biography of Whistler's mother. In her writings, Anna made shrewd observations about the social, cultural, artistic, and political issues of her era, which was one of the enormous and near-constant change. She knew and interacted with an astonishing array of people, from Russian peasants and American farmers to Robert E. Lee. Okay. All right. So Daniel Sutherland co-wrote Whistler's Mother, which comes out at the end of the month, right at the same time as Yale's paperback release of his biography of Whistler himself. So we've got a Whistler double feature there. That's very nice. And those of you, I'll put these in their respective books. Those of you who like I love reading artist biographies. I admit I am just provincial enough when it comes to art so that I don't always particularly like reading artist biographies of artists whose work I don't like, which is ridiculous. They are two separate things. I should, but even so, I've got a prime example of I don't care for Picasso's work at all. But I'm looking forward to reading this book. Okay, so we have a Whistler doubleheader, a biography of Whistler's mother, and a biography of Whistler himself, and then a biography of the young Picasso. Then Prisoner in the Castle, the new Maggie Hope book. Those of you who know her stories will know why I'm grinning from ear to ear at the mere prospect of another Maggie Hope book. And then A Carnival of Losses, Donald Hall's Take No Prisoners memoir at age 89. So there you go. That is the last mail haul of the week. And I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.